Welcome back to Sad Clown Outdoors. Today we're doing irrigation in the tortoise enclosure. I promised a video on that, and I'm going to put these little sprayers. I've got 90-degree sprayers for each corner, and I've got 180-degree sprayers like this one to go along the edge of the wall. This will give me pretty good coverage for any sort of weeds that might grow in here, plus watering the trees in the enclosure. And if he's walking around, he gets sprayed by one of these, it's also an additional hydration source for him because they soak it up like a sponge. Concept here is to soak the ground. Maybe I'll get a bunch of weed growth, throw some weed seeds out here that he can eat as they grow up, and see if I can't get him some sort of sustainable food source that can supplement the normal hay that I'm bringing in. I don't think it's going to supplement it completely, and in the winter I'm still going to have to feed him hay, but it'll be a more grazing environment for him, which is more natural to him. So when planning the house, I ran irrigation line all the way down to the tortoise enclosure because I had this project in mind. It's 3/4 inch, and I just put an end cap on here, but we're going to connect it to the tortoise enclosure a little later, and it'll feed the whole thing. So here's the inlet to the tortoise enclosure. I put a little pipe. This is just temporary fitting. I think I'm going to split it off this way and do some planters as well. But I put a hole with a PVC into the base of the brick wall so I can feed this line right through and not be going over the wall or strapping to the wall and looking really tacky. It just feeds right in underneath, and it'll go right along the wall. So the line comes in the wall here, and I put a T in here, and I like to use hose clamps because they're easy to tighten up later if they get loose, or just take apart and put back together as necessary. The ones where you have to pinch them in place, they're a nightmare to get off. Yeah, they're really easy to put in place, but I would recommend you use hose clamps. It works like a charm. And it's an irrigation system, so if it leaks a little bit, it's not a big deal. I haven't had them leak so far though, and I've been using them for about 10 years. So I have run this 3/4 inch line and put in little sprayers all over the enclosure. So I've run it all the way around. Now it's time to actually hook up the sprayers. Now it's time to hook up the sprayers, as we just talked about. Now, there are different types of this irrigation line. It's like a hard PVC, and this other one that I prefer is more of a soft vinyl. That allows me to push it over all of these little irrigation spikes or extensions or whatever it might be, or the sprayer itself, a lot easier. I don't know why they go with the very hard, stiff stuff. It's just a nightmare to work with, and you don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is cut a simple length of this off to where I can connect the sprayer to the actual line, and you use this little puncture tool. It's a very unique tool, very easy to use. You just push it in, make a hole. So now that you've got your hole, you have these barbed fittings that actually puncture into the line, and then the other side is just a standard little fitting for the tubular insert. And you want to make sure you're using the barb fitting into the tube hole. I like to use these type of standard plier to push them in, especially with this tubing because it's a little thicker than the stuff I'm usually utilizing, so it's going to be a little more difficult to actually get seated in there. But you'll see there's a collar on this, and I use these to push on that collar. So I'm not squeezing down really hard. I'm just pushing it in with the tips of the plier. Just put it into the hole. In it goes, just like that. It's ready to go. Now, you have these little sprayers. They have the same kind of barbed fitting on the end, but you can use that on the tube itself. It's just fine. Then you run that tube to your fitting, and this sprayer is hooked up. Now you just have to adjust it to where it's spraying the right direction. And each one of these are a different radius. Some of them are 90 degree, some of them are 180. So it just depends on how much of a fan out you require. Like the little green one in the corner, I don't have 180, or it's going to just be spraying the wall. It's a 90 degree one, so it's just going to cover that area. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these and follow up with you later. So I showed you the main line, that 3/4 inch line. These are the fittings for that, and this one is a T fitting for 3 directions. But you'll notice that this version of it is threaded. So this actually will thread in if you twist on it. It'll drag itself in, and that'll help you seat it a lot easier. Now I've put in a majority of them. I need a few more. Looks like I'm short about 5. But this one is a 360 degree. I put it dead center of the enclosure to kind of catch whatever's missed by the overspray. And I did bury this line. I didn't bury the other ones because they're right next to the base of the main line, but I buried this one so the tortoise walking through doesn't pull it out. And he's a jerk like that, so he will. I think he's already knocked this stem over once, so keep that in mind. A lot of people bury their main line in irrigation, and a lot of reason for that is just to hide it, make it look prettier. I'm not burying this one, that way I can get to it to maintenance it really easily. And if the tortoise pulls one of these sprayer heads out, it'll just be easy to swap it out. Cameo! Bo in his own video. Come on outside, buddy. It's nice. So I've been asked what the purpose of these black pipes is. And I just took some corrugated drainage pipe, I cut it down the edge, and I wrapped it around these. I gotta get a few more that are wider diameter to fit around some of the other trees. But the purpose of it is because Bo's shell, he's a 50-pound tortoise, and he's gonna get up to 100+ pounds. And his shell will just rub that bark right off and kill the tree. And I don't want that to happen, so we're protecting it. Think about it for yours. So putting in your own irrigation, specifically a drip irrigation, not a sprinkler system, but a drip irrigation is pretty simplistic. You just have a simple valve and a control box. It's not that complicated. I think anybody that can, dig the hole for the box can probably do the entire job. So if you're ever thinking about doing irrigation or drip irrigation for a garden or any sort of flowering or an enclosure like this for a tortoise, I think you can do it. If you can dig the hole, you can do the rest. And it's very simplistic, and it, like on the main line, if you poke a hole that you didn't mean to have in that spot, you're like, oh, it should have been 7 inches over. They do have little plugs that are solid, and you can plug it in there. It's called a goof plug, because you goofed up, I guess. And you just plug it in there, and you don't have an issue. It just prevents it from leaking, and you move on. And it's really easy. All you have to do is dig a trench, yay deep, and run your main line, and then run a bunch of little tiny lines off of that to these little drippers. And each plant, as you buy it, has this little card with it that'll tell you how many gallons per hour it needs, and you compensate. So if you're going to be running something that takes 2 gallons an hour, and you're only going to run your system for an hour, get a 4-gallon dripper on there. Most plants, they need about 1 gallon or 2 gallons. Anything over that, you're pretty much looking at a tree. So it's not complicated, and if you really want to run one, have some faith in yourself and just look it up. Now this is self-explanatory, and I did explain it earlier, but since I have to do it, I'll show you. I'm going to temporarily connect this line to the main line and be able to run it to see which zone this is all on. I believe it's on zone 2, but we'll find out. So you put it in, and then as you twist, it'll drag itself down, and then it's only the last part that you kind of have to work in. And you just want to make sure all those ridges are within the pipe, and those will block water. Then you just take your screwdriver and tighten the clamp down. It's that simple. Now there are fancy hose cutters and stuff to cut this that might do a better job. I think I've used 3 or 4 versions, but I've been doing this stuff for about, I don't know, 20 years total, and tin snips, large tin snips. They work like a champ on all this stuff. Another benefit of the large tin snips, when you cut it, you tend to have a crushed end. You can just take the back end of the tin snips and crush it back into a circular shape, so when you connect it, it's easier. I'm just out here for the shower, apparently. So the irrigation is complete. All the sprayers are spraying as they should be. And when you're done putting them all in, you want to make sure that their angle, for example this one, you want to make sure that their angle is spraying in the direction you want it to do max coverage. And you'll see perhaps that there's one spot right over here where it's dry, but I don't really mind. It's the only spot in the whole area. It looks really good. And Bo is out here having fun, so he likes it too, probably because it's hot. But if you like what you're seeing, feel free to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.